Next up, we have one of my favorite projects within MASB. Of course, all of them are a favorite of mine, but this is one that is very fun to participate in, and that's the Common Language Marketing Dictionary. And we have Paul Farris here. So Paul is a co-lead of the team with John Gasky of University of Notre Dame.
You can see from the screen now that I am retired. This particular project, the Common Language Marketing Dictionary, is one of the few things that I have retained an active role in because I believe this is something that has been neglected and is very important. And as Frank mentioned, it's just a pleasure to work with the people on the team who are dedicated and also having a lot of fun exploring some of the new and fuzzier concepts that we foist on each other in marketing. Here you see a description of the Common Language project in terms of the format that MASB uses to describe all of our undertakings or our main undertakings. Many of you are new to MASB and don't have the kind of background of the project, but let me say that the lack of agreed upon definition for the terminologies and terms that we use in marketing is one of the primary motivators. This is for people who are new to marketing. You can well imagine that in advertising, for example, if they run across some media plans that report exposures, others that report opportunities to see, and still others that quantify impressions, they might well think that those are all different things, when in fact we know that they're used interchangeably, and that's just one of the sources of potential confusion that I think the dictionary exists to address. And even things that like frequency, which is one of the core concepts of advertising media. The Journal of Advertising Research, which should have a board that knows these things in and out, published an article several years ago with an incorrect definition of frequency. So I sort of emphasize these kind of issues just to give you a little bit of the motivation of why this dictionary is needed and why the audience for the dictionary are not just those new to marketing. In fact, I think that dynamics of marketing, the rate at which we are introducing new terms, potentially in response to a lot of the new technologies and strategies and deeper development of practice, is also another reason why a current source of authoritative definitions is really needed to help us communicate with each other. The industry associations that are mentioned down below are also essential to giving us being MASB in the form of the Common Language Dictionary, the authority and credibility to be effective communicators and arbiters of these decisions. The American Marketing Association, the Association of National Advertisers, the Marketing Science Institute, they've all been essential to giving us access to existing dictionaries, especially in the case of the American Marketing Association and the Association of National Advertisers. That's material that we could build on, we could add to the work that co-authors Neil Bendel and David Reebstein and I, who are also MASB members, contributed through our own marketing metrics book. If you know of other organizations that would be interested in, contributing to this particular project, and through their sponsorship would also enhance, the credibility and acceptance of the definitions that we are publishing and developing, that would be much appreciated. So the dictionary homepage is shown here. And a lot of what we do is designed to get people to come to this homepage where they can access our definitions and some of the other activities that are motivating the links to the dictionary. Some of those are one we'll talk a little bit more later, marketing term of the week. Many of the other organizations that sponsor us also have a link to their homepage or somewhere on their web pages to our dictionary. The project team itself, from time to time, will also, through our own social media, enhance the traffic to this web page. But this is where it starts. And when you click through to a particular definition, in this particular case, market or brand penetration, this is the kind of page that you will see. And this particular one, well, if it deals with a metric, is going to give you an idea of how it's constructed, what it's used for, and some of the methodologies that are used to collect the data to construct the metric. I'm going to say a little bit more later on about the difference between concepts and metrics, but I think metrics were one of the primary reasons for getting the dictionary started. We quickly, however, expanded beyond what most people would consider metrics and are now working through definitions of newer concepts that have not yet reached the stage of metrics. Market penetration, can't help but make or brand penetration. I was speaking with an author of a case the other day, and this person had used penetration share and called it as a metric and reported in the tables of the data in the case, but had called it just penetration. And this was an example to me of the kind of the potential confusion that can result even in academic, publications without an authoritative source to define these terms in a way that will improve our ability to communicate with each other. Oops, a little faster here. The market, the traffic that we develop to that comes in many different sources. One of the sources is the common language, the marketing term of the week, which was developed by, this whole program was kind of developed by Eric, and has been not as successful as we would like, but I think growing quickly in terms of the number of likes that we're getting from social media, the sort of sharing activity that different MASB members and other people who are interested in the marketing dictionary are engaging in. When I was teaching, I would also put a link to the Common Language Dictionary on my course website. And it enabled me to sort of get rid of the student excuse that they didn't know the definition of a particular term that was being used, because I would remind them it was always available and easily accessible on the web. And through that marketing term of the week, of course, we're getting on some other or not necessarily through that, but I'm going to show you a little later some of the top terms that we are able to track in terms of the searches in the dictionary itself. Now, one of the successes of the dictionary has been being featured by search engines of Google and Bing, and resources such as Wikipedia, which also itself, is a place where people search for a lot of things, especially that have a kind of a definitional or an academic aspect to them. In this particular case, one of the best things that can happen is when someone searches on Google for a marketing term, here loop layout of a retail store, if we get featured as a snippet at near the top of that search, and we get sourced as the definition, which in this case we have been sourced, as you can see that at the bottom, and that is terrific. That helps us build credibility and also builds traffic to the dictionary site itself. Now, it's of course not limited to the snippet, but you might also find in many other cases that in addition to the snippet, or instead of the snippet, you would see a reference to an organic reference to the page itself. And I was also say that we are, in many times, competing with consulting organizations who are paying for search advertising that will come up for their organizations when someone searches for the definition of a term. Customer lifetime value being a prime example. Brand preference here is shown on Wikipedia, and how Wikipedia links the discussion of brand preference to the common language dictionary. They don't link the dictionary, they refer to the dictionary as the source for the definition that they provide. So how's that all working? Well, for many months, we were, sort of just chunking along here, making a little progress. But as you can see, recently, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, we have really started to make progress. And I put that to a number of, I'll attribute that to a number of reasons. One of them being Google's treatment of us and beginning to accept us, and Wikipedia accepting us, MASB and the Common Language Dictionary, as a highly credible source for marketing terms. There is typically a drop-off in the summer. So here you can see that although we've had fantastic growth, we've gone above 30,000 unique visitors and sustaining near 25,000. That has happened just in 1 year, that we've made almost a 10,000 monthly visitor jump. But in both of these years, you can see that there is a drop off in the summer months. Now we attribute that to a loss in many of the academic related searches. So if you look at the younger people who would be more likely to be in school during the winter and spring, then they are not having the same kind of academic activity. So we see a drop off, particularly in that 18 to 24 group when you get into the middle of the summer. And that will be expected to pick up again as schools get back in session. Will be interesting to see how that's affected this year, whether because of more online activity, we get even greater jump in the fall, or whether we have to think about a different way of promoting the dictionary so that that usage does not fail to increase. Or did I get too many negatives in there? So that the usage does indeed increase in September, and maybe even more so in the past. So one of the great things about the dictionary being on the web and trackable as it is it gives us insight into the terms that people are interested in. Now, the difference in this, I think, can come from several different several different sources. I mentioned students, so the number of people who are being introduced to marketing and have a need to understand the terminology, of course, that's going to be one of the primary sources. But also, as new terms are introduced in marketing, and even experienced marketers are wondering, exactly what those mean, that affords us an opportunity to influence that discussion. And just as the things happen in our environment and some things become more important than they were previously, this gives us a way to track that. Frank also mentioned the other day that we have to separate that kind of activity and interest from the structure of the dictionary. So if you look at buying roles and you say, okay, why is that the very top term? Well, it's because if people are searching for influencer or approver or a couple of other descriptions of different buying roles, they will be directed to this umbrella term. So the structure of the dictionary is also responsible for some of the differences that you see. Back here. Thought you might be interested in taking a look at some of the latest terms that we are seeing coming up in the search frequency. And obviously, you've already discussed name, image, and likeness, and Tony also mentioned influencer as a potential addition to that nil, becoming nilly. Machine learning, you all talked about also. So these are to me, the kind of thing that will generate these new terms that are interesting to marketers who are trying to stay at the cutting edge of their art. The dictionary is a way for them to get informed in an authoritative way quickly. We'll say some more about these others in just a second. COVID and the shortage of toilet paper, among other things, is obviously an example of something creating interest in out of stocks, not only in understanding and monitoring them, but digging deeper and understanding the metrics that are used to monitor out of stocks. The notion here, of course, is that something that you expected to be in the store and available was not, and the dictionary will give you a deeper discussion of how out of stocks are typically measured as a percentage of the stores that list them, and sometimes those will be numeric distribution or all commodity volume or product category volume. So that's an example of how the dictionary can let someone dig deeper into a definition instead of just staying at the very top. Similarly, here is a page which describes NIL or nil, and also argues that influencers should be recognized as an additional dimension of the right to publicity. Amusingly, I was very interested to hear that in one of the Jeopardy challenges or competitions, the Tournament of Champions, I guess it was, this term, nil, was actually the answer to one of the questions that was posed. Sorry about that. All right. Machine learning. We've spent a lot of time on machine learning trying to develop definitions that are consistent both with marketing's understanding of how machine learning is being applied, and also definition that is consistent with the mathematical and statistical communities who are developing and employing those algorithms and technologies. So this definition is obviously one of the more current ones, but it is not the most current. Here are the ones that we are currently struggling with. And when I say struggling with, that implies that that's a lot of hard work. But we learn from each other. We have a lot of fun. Also consulting outside sources to give us their opinions. Here's a list of some of the ones that are going to keep us occupied for a while in developing the definitions that we hope will become the standard for the industry. One of the things that I'm beginning to appreciate more is that when we move from things like metrics, which typically have a pretty concrete, precise definition, into concepts that are inherently a little more fuzzy, we have to recognize that, and also that we can't achieve the same level of precision necessarily with something that is with a concept such as product differentiation, and compared to a metric that is ACV out of stocks. Also, not everyone agrees with the way a word or a term should be used. So we're recognizing those controversies as well in some of the newer terms, so that we're not painted into a corner by trying to issue an authoritative definition that is unlikely to stick. Finally, there's the context that a term is used in. You talked last week, I think, or not last week, but in the previous meeting, I think John Gasky mentioned push versus pull, and how that's different from a classical CPG marketer's usage of the term than maybe a digital marketer's use of push advertising. And if we were to go over to operations and look at push and pull and how that's used in inventories and replacement of inventories in a distribution center, in each of those cases, the context is going to be important as to how that term is used. And finally, the dynamics of marketing. It seems like every week almost something new comes in, and trying to stay on top of that is a challenge, but it's a great challenge and it's a lot of fun, and we need a lot of help. So if any of you would like to share in some of this work, and or just give us some feedback on what we are producing, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you can help us promote the dictionary to the other audiences that you have in your companies or in your social networks, we believe that the more widely the dictionary is used, the more authoritative it's going to become, and it's something that we can all contribute to the improving the ability of marketers to communicate not only with each other and within our own companies, but with the wider world out there. Here is the team that I referred to. And each of the people pictured here has been a terrific contributor. If we were to do this probably in proportion to the amount of work that's put on, that third row of pictures should be about twice as big as all the others. But they keep us organized, they keep us on time, they keep us productive. And I think it's something that many of you would enjoy working with us on. take a deep breath here and say thank you and see if there are any questions.
All right, Paul, we do. The first, we have a hand raised from Don Sexton. So we are going to allow him to unmute.
Well, set, you got me?
We have you, Don.
Great, great. Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
Hey, Don.
Fascinating work. You know, I especially was interested in that top 24 terms. And it crossed my mind that it's kind of an indicator of how marketing is being taught, which gets me to my real question, which is where is willingness to pay? Where is willingness to pay? It wasn't even in the ones you're looking at as possibly inclusion. And just as my bias, I think it's really kind of central to marketing.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. So I don't think this top terms is in search frequency for the period of March through August. Eric, you're going to confirm that's how that's calculated?
I understand, and maybe it's just going to remain a mystery, but in my experience, willingness to pay requires some explanation in class. And I'm just surprised that it didn't show up on the top 24.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I will say that our metrics book it certainly includes willingness to pay, and I think it's a core concept that underlies a lot of metrics that are derived from that, or trying to operationalize that concept.
Absolutely, and I'll give you an endorsement. It's a fine book on metrics that you guys put together. All right, thank you.
All right. Don, we'll get back to you. Actually, we'll review the analytics and we'll tell you where that actually is.
Good.
But again, I just want to emphasize this. There could be a lot of terms that are used very frequently in marketing that just don't show up on the search. And it could also be, well, no, because this was all between March, 20 or in that 4-month period, I think most of those others would have been in the dictionary.
Paul, we have another question here. We have it from JP. He writes, can MASB help ARF add influencer attribution to the media attribution that's they're now measuring?
Oh, what a great question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like such a very sensible thing to do. I think that would be great to work on how a metric like that could be operationalized and compare it to how, media attribution is being operationalized. What a great idea.
Yeah, so we'll definitely take that back to the curation team. All right. Any other questions for Paul? So Paul, we want to thank you very much for your presentation.